Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, that's working. Turning on the
Oh,
camera.
there you are.
Yep,
Hi, good morning. How are you, Michael?
I'm fine.
Good. My name's Genesis Ortiz. I'm the HR analyst here for the city of Santa Ana. So I've been emailing you back and forth. So thank you for joining us today for your interview.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start out by just doing your check-in today. That's all I'll be doing, and then we'll be moving you into the interview. So
Can,
perfect.
can you see it or no?
No, because of the blur.
Well, let me try to do something on my end here. So, blur's off. How is
Perfect.
it now?
Yeah. Let me see. Perfect. Thank you. And do you prefer to go by Michael or Christopher?
Michael.
Michael. Okay, great. So, Michael, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and read to you a brief statement in regards to our civil service. So, during this time, just ensure you can hear me or see me. And then once I'm done with reading this information off to you, we'll go ahead and get started, okay?
Okay.
Great. So again, Michael, thank you for participating in the Assistant Plan Check Engineer interview process. The City of Santa Ana Civil Service Rules provide that applicants may appeal oral interviews. Appeals must be based on irregularity or fraud and filed within 5 days of the date of your interview. If you'd like additional information, please ask to speak to myself or anyone else on our HR team. At this time, as a reminder, please turn off all electronic devices not being used prior to your interview. Any recordings of your interview is strictly prohibited and will be grounds for disqualification from your recruitment process. So before I let you in, let me tell you a little bit more about your actual interview. You're going to have 30 minutes to answer 8 questions, and then all results from today's interview will be sent to you via email 1 to 2 weeks from today. If you are successful in today's interview, you will be asked to come back to City Hall for an in-person final interview with our hiring manager.
Thank you.
Yes, and then you're going to be in your interview. It's going to be conducted by 2 raters, and they are as follow. I have Yoko Tanaka, who's a consultant with CSG Consultancies. They work with closely here with City of Santa Ana. And I have Mehdi Taheri, is a plant check engineer for the city of Huntington Beach.
Thank you.
All right. And Michael, do you have any questions for me before we begin?
No, I don't.
Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go check in with the raters, make sure they're ready for you. When they are ready to get started, we'll send you an invitation to join the breakout room. So you'll see that on your screen. Go ahead and click that when you see it and you'll get started.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck to you.
And we're waiting for the breakout room. The breakout room. The breakout room. We are waiting for the breakout room. The breakout room. The breakout room. We are waiting for the breakout room. Loo do 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 do. We are waiting for the breakout room. Loo do 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 do. We are waiting for the breakout room, and we're joining in the progress.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Hello, everybody, and it's Yoko
Hi.
Tanaka, and I see Mehdi Taheri. So I see the screen, so I want to be sure that we sit. I'm seeing everything. So, and I know you
Okay,
heard me.
great.
I'm doing this to test it, so I know we have 30 minutes. So
Yes, you do. Oh, I don't have to tell you anything. So yes, we have 8 questions total, and you have 30 minutes to answer the question. We wanna briefly introduce ourselves. My name is Yoko Tanaka. I'm a plan reviewer. Work for a consultant company.
And
And
this is Mehdi Taheri. I work for City of Huntington Beach. I'm a branching engineer.
nice meeting both of you.
Thank you.
nice meeting you. Okay, let's get started. So the first question, please briefly describe your education, training, and experience as they relate to the position of assistant plan check engineer?
Okay, I've got 27 years experience as a structural engineer. I'm educated as a structural engineer with a bachelor's and a master's degree. I'm licensed in 4 states as a structural engineer, California being one of the 4. I have an ICC California Plans Examiner certification, so I have that. I'm ready to hit the ground running. So I've designed and reviewed all sorts of structures, so I'm going to go into that. 3/4 of it's been in design, about a quarter of the time of my career has been in the review capacity, and that's where I get consulted, where they ask me to look stuff over, whether it's a city or a private individual, that's gotten into trouble. So I've designed and reviewed all sorts of structures, so it's your steel, your wood, concrete, masonry, and all the lateral systems and gravity systems I'm familiar with. So I'll go through all the lateral systems I'm familiar with. So on the steel, moment frames of steel or concrete, shear walls of plywood, CMU, and concrete. Let's see, BRBFs, which are the new steel brace frames. Let's see, cantilever columns, whether they be steel or concrete. So, and my experience covers all sorts of different things. So that's from single-family homes, hotels, high-rise buildings, low-rise buildings, seismic improvements, tenant improvements, schools, hospitals. Let's see, parking garages. Podium structures, that's the big common one here. A lot of apartments, custom homes. Let's see. And I'm considered an expert on everything, and I've got all the software, your ETABS, your SAP, your SAFE. So I think that sums it up, and that's about 2 minutes. So do you need additional clarification before I go on?
You are expert on everything.
I just want to clarify that, and I want to add light gauge steel. That's the other one.
Michael, just quickly, do you have PE in California?
Yes, I just told you I had a structural engineer license in California. I don't know if you're aware of it. In California, you have to have in California, they're not called professional licenses. It's called civil engineer in California. Okay, right. You have to have that before you get the structural engineer license.
So you have also SE in California?
Yes, I do. That's what I said.
Good. All right, then that sounds good. So I'll go with the next question. What do you believe are the key duties of this position within planning and building agency?
The key things with this position are basically ensuring life safety. Basically make sure the structure is safe and works the way it's intended, and that's checking the lateral and the gravity systems to be sure that works. Basically, in a summation. And also, for example, light gauge shear. Your firewalls can't. How the architectural interacts with the structural as well. That's important. That's part of life safety. So you don't want to have a ceiling fall down in an earthquake, from it interacting with the building components. So that's it in a nutshell. Do you want me to go into additional clarification, or is that enough?
No, you're familiar with the California Building Code, I assume, right?
Yes, I'm very familiar with that. So that's ensuring everything with that's part of the California Building Code that's adhered to, and also any reference documents associated with that California Building Code, whether it's the regular building code or the existing building code, or other standards, such as ASC 41 if they decide to do a retrofit, if it's referenced.
All right, perfect.
Okay, so the next question. Give us an example of the most difficult project you have been directly responsible for. Discuss the major challenges and obstacles you faced and how you handled them.
Okay, the most difficult review I've done is an 8-story building with 4 stories below ground parking, and that was a concrete shear wall building out of double shear wall cores. It was difficult because it's not one of the typical building. It had every seismic irregularity in the code imaginable. So you had concrete shear wall cores going from the 8th floor down to the ground level, and then those walls would be discontinuous. It would be supported by 4 massive, I think it's 4 foot by 6 foot long columns at each corner of the core walls, and then that shear force gets transferred out to the retaining wall outside. It was a challenge because there was a lot going on in that building, and a lot of different details, especially checking to be sure that the garden slab can take all the loads. The garden slab had lots of irregularities, lots of for example, breaks in the slab, so you had to be sure that the forces could be transferred correctly. And also, it was a construction challenge. It was a challenge because there was a lot of different, a lot of transfer girders. So, for example, some of the columns stopped at the podium at the ground level, and then they would transfer out. So that involved checking a lot of transfer beams. They were post-tension concrete, and then there was steel on the roof, and that was for the the penthouse, and it wasn't a typical one, so that was a challenge for me because I had to figure out whether to accept it or not, and I had to ask a lot of questions.
Thank you.
Go with the next question. A building inspector returns from the field and informs you that he has discovered several code deficiencies in plans that were previously approved by another plan check engineer. How would you handle this situation?
I would get a hold of the engineer of record to let them know what's going on, what we saw, and give them a chance to address it in writing first. Maybe there's a good reason for it. That's something I always do. And then if I'll take a look at it too, and if it's obvious, I will tell the engineer, for example, like you attached, if it's cut and dry, I'm going to tell the engineer, you've got to address this. We're going to stop the job or start part of the job. And when I say that, that means give the contractor the ability to work on everything else around it, while we're trying to figure that out. So the engineer, the owner, and the architect has to be noted immediately. In some circumstances, the building permit can be revoked if it was approved in error, it's called. That's in California Building Code in Chapter 1. That's allowed as an administrative remedy. So I would want to hear the engineer, have something in writing that they're okay with it, just to be sure. Of course, I have the final say. So, whether it's allowed or not, And then another thing I would do is find the person that reviewed that and ask them about that, why they approved what they did, and let them know, and find out if they really know that area, if they know that expertise, for example. If the person reviewed it primarily specializes in wood buildings, and they approved something with, like a concrete shear wall building, and they had no clue. So I would let them know in the future, please don't work on that because that's not your expertise. I would want to find that out before I did anything. And that to me is really important because you can get in big trouble for that if you have a defective building. They the owner gets really upset, and that has to go to court, and that's not a fun thing. And we're down to, we've passed 8 minutes, by the way. And do you need additional clarifications or questions on anything?
No, that's all good, thank you.
Thank you. Next question. How would you describe the relationship between the plan reviewers and counter staff?
Okay, the counter staff takes things in, basically, and they, make sure everything's ready so it's prepped so I can review it. That's the relationship. So they basically take in all the money, set up the job electronically, and that's the relation to the plan reviewer, because they tell me whether the people over the counter tell me whether to review it. And also, if the people over the counter don't know something or have a question, they will call me, and I will talk to the applicant about it. So it's basically also, they have to be a communications person. So I call them the eyes and ears, and, the first person they see before they start the review process.
Thank you.
All right, I'll go with the next question. How would you address an applicant who does not appear to be technically competent?
Depends what it is. I would try to gauge what they are or aren't. For example, I had one in the past where we had a woman that did not know how to design a masonry shear wall. So I asked her, did you design one? She said no. So I sent her the information on how to do it, basically. And I told her, I'm not designing your wall for you. Here's the information. If you have questions, you can come and ask. Another, so I want to gauge what they do and don't know. And if they really don't know, I would insist that tell that person, yes, you need an expert, that specializes in that, or I would recommend they go take a class. For example, if they never took, have never taken a wood design class, I would recommend that they take the wood design class, or get some experience with an experienced engineer. But I would tell them, my job isn't to design it for you. My job is to tell you why, why it's wrong and what to do about it. And if it's obvious, I can see it, I will tell them, this is what I'm seeing, and I would use a screen, put it up on the screen, this is what you're missing, and if it's software, I would tell them, you need to get, they don't know the software, I'm telling them, post it up, show them the software manual, says you gotta look at the results yourself. If it's something they don't have access to, for example, let's say I had one applicant didn't know how to use RISA, so I had an old version of RISA, the manual for it, and gave it to them and gave them the examples. Some software they don't make anymore, but I always kept all of the manuals, especially for plan review, because I want to know what I'm reading before I approve anything.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yes, sorry. Okay, question number 7. You're working at the public counter and in the middle of a conversation with a member of the public. Another individual pushes his way to the front of the line, tells you he is in a hurry, and starts asking you questions. How would you handle this situation?
I would tell that person you need to wait your turn, first of all. Don't push ahead of the line, if it's in a hurry or something, you need to know, and I would tell them, if you're in a hurry, you need to get done, you have to notify me ahead of time, so I can be prepared for you. That can be an email, that can be a phone call, you just don't cut in line. If you're, and would tell the applicant, if you're urgent for me to do something, you need to send me an email with all the information so I can take care of you. And unless you've got approval from somebody else, back of the, take your place in line.
Okay.
That concludes the interview. Is there anything else you would like to add in closing?
Oh, I want to add that I feel I'm qualified. I can't speak to the other applicants, but I can only speak to what I do, and how I feel I'm qualified for the position. So I have probably the most, I've been called the encyclopedia of structural engineering by friends, and that's because I have the extensive knowledge, and I'm able to solve issues, with buildings. So I'm not afraid to, talk to somebody over the counter or over the phone or give them the information. One thing I like to do is break things up into tiny pieces to be sure people can understand, because not everybody's going to have, the abilities for me, Everybody learns differently, so I try to accommodate people. I try to ask a lot of questions. And I also try to make sure, if I have questions, I remind people, and, this probably goes back to grade school. I tell them, you're not in trouble. I need additional information. And if somebody has a question, if it's going to take a while, I'm going to tell them, this is going to take a while for me to look up, so you're not just sitting there waiting. I've been on both sides of this counter, and that I think is very helpful, because I know what applicants want. I'm a very good communicator, whether it's, plan review or, being out in the public, asking questions. I get asked a lot of questions, So I'm still doing that now, and, so I've pretty much done all the building types, reviewed and designed all the building types, and I think, that's an advantage. I believe I can hit the ground running on these systems. With the plan review software, obviously, I've got that with Bluebeam, but other systems, depending on what it is, that's going to take me a little bit of time. I've proven through time I've adopted, adapted very quickly. I didn't mean to say adopted. I'm sorry. So, do you have additional questions for me before we leave the breakout room?
No, good. Good. Thank you. Thanks for basically attending the interview. The HR would be our HR would be in contact with you within 2 weeks by an email, and if there is any question you have specific for this role for the city of Santa Ana, you can reach out to Genesis. She's more than happy to help you with that.
Mm-hmm.
If there is any additional question, if you don't have any question for us, you can leave. You can press the button, leave breakout room, and then good luck.
Yep.
Thank you for joining the interview.
Nice meeting you both. And I will leave the breakout room right now. So have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Genesis Ortiz is sitting there waiting. I'm in my interview. I'm still in the interview. They went to the conference room. I'm done with the questions. I have the HR person.
Check later if the light is okay.
Yep. As soon as I'm done, I gotta go downstairs and get the
Get the what?
suitcase. For me.
No, I do later, I told you.
No, me. Not you.
Oh my gosh.
For me.
Christopher, that for you.
Yeah.
You don't understand what I'm trying to tell you?
Well, we know that works.
Yes, it does. If you're all set, you are welcome to leave, or if you have any questions.
I have a
few
few
minutes.
I have a few questions, actually. Why is the position available, and how soon are you looking to fill it?
So we have an opening. We did have someone leave the position, so that's why we're looking to fill it. I mean, timeline. I mean, obviously, we always want to say as soon as possible, but there's a process. So, I mean, as soon as we get to the next phase of the interview, which would be probably in the next 3 weeks, we would probably want to start someone within the next month. So we're all looking to fill it right away. It still takes a little bit of time.
Okay, because I remember back in 2020, I interviewed the guys, and I never heard anything back, so that's why I'm asking.
Right. Oh, sorry about that. No, well, ideally, whether it's a yes or no, we do have email communication that we send to all candidates. So within a week or two from today, we'll send results. So we give you a score, whether if you hit 70 and above, you're considered passing, and you'll be placed on an eligibility list. And based on the bands that you land on, so there's bands A, B, and C, based on your score, the hiring manager can decide which band they would like to welcome back for a second interview.
Okay, so how is that band decided? Just by score?
Yeah, so 90 and above A, 80 to 90 B, and then 70 to 79 C.
Okay, now does having previous experience factor into this or not, or is it just the interview only?
No, I think it's an overall, but today, for this one, it is, I would say, probably 90% based on the oral interview, because the raters, while they do have your application, where the questions are geared to kind of test your technical skills, your soft skills, and everything, but then if you move on to the next interview, they look at everything as well.
Okay, I just wanted to ask about that, And how's the salary decided on that? Where would I fall in? Like, let's say I have my experience would put me in the high end of the band, or does everybody start at the low end of the band, or?
That I can't answer because that's something that I work with the hiring manager once we have the candidate selected. So there's different variations. I'll tell you now, we don't start anyone at the highest step, which is step E. That's only given when you're promoting. So I can tell you at least that we are not, due to our civil service code, we're not able to start anyone at the highest top of this step, which is step E.
Oh, okay, so probably my case would be a step D as in dog,
Yeah, so again, it just depends on the final candidate. We evaluate everything at that point. We look at everything you have, your application, your resume, whatever you have attached, and then your overall interviews, and that's when we determine the salary.
Okay.
It's an overall evaluation.
Okay, I just wanted to ask, so probably if I don't hear anything in 3 weeks, I'm assuming nothing's happened. Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Of course, we will send you something within a week or two via email.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye. Leaving meeting.